people, we have to fight. Egungu, you see us. Ogu, we have to fight. Let's go fight. Black people, we have to fight. Dandara, you see us. Ogu, we have to fight. Let's go fight. Black people, we have to fight. Makandalo, you see us. Ogu, we have to fight. Let's go fight. Black people, we have to fight. Nana John, Henry Clark, you see us.
We have to fight. Let's go fight.
Black people, we have to fight. Yasantewa, you see us. We have to fight.
Let's go fight.
Black people, we have to fight. Marcus Garvey, you see us. We have to fight. Let's go fight. Black people, we have to fight. Nana Zumbio, you see us. We have to fight.
Let's go fight.
Black people, we have to fight. Nana Hannibal, you see us. Ogu, we have to fight. Let's go fight. Black people, we have to fight. Ancestors, you see us. We have to fight. Let's go fight.
We have to have the courage to construct our own reality. And that's what Garvey was talking about. Because he said he looked around, he didn't see what he thought should be there, and so what did he do? He didn't get depressed about it. He didn't get defeated about it. He said, I'm gonna build the government that we need to have. Ooh, where do you get that kind of boldness from? So we gotta go all the way back to Garvey, who said he would come again. He said, he would be here with us, no matter how long it took. And I'm telling you that the way he comes back is in our work. Not honoring him in words, pomp and all of that stuff, but honoring him through doing what he did. How many of us have the courage to do that? The man took on the world for us and in our name. And then we come to Sodai. And in this presentation of the paradigm, I'm going to make this like what it is we want to reach. So Sodai is translated clear word in Dogana language. And I use it to mean that here we gain understanding. This is sight with understanding. And it is seeing beyond what just we think we see with this physical thing. It's seeing beyond that. And so we gain vision, because that's what vision is. With vision, you've got to be able to use the imagination informed by the African spirit. And Brother Amos, who I work very closely with, was a good friend of mine. He taught me, and he would talk about imagination. Image a nation. Do you see? But that's got to be part of vision. To be a visionary, you got to see beyond this box here. You got to see beyond the ma'afa. You got to see what is it that our people rightfully should have, and that's what Garvey did. Garvey had a vision.
May our people triumph. Weep, O black beloved brother deep, buried in eternal bestial night. O you, whose dust, simoons and hurricanes have scattered all over the vast earth. You, by whose hands the pyramids were reared, in memory of royal murderers. You, rounded up in raids, you, countless times defeated in all the battles ever won by brutal force. You, who were taught but one perpetual lesson, our motto, which was slavery or death. You, who lay hidden in impenetrable jungles and silently succumbed to countless deaths under the ugly guise of jungle fever, or lurking in the tiger's fatal jaws, in the slow embrace of the morass that strangled gradually like the python. But then there came a day that brought the wild, more sly, more full of spite than any death. Your gold he bartered for his worthless beads and baubles. He raped and fouled your sisters and your wives. He poisoned with his drink your sons and brothers, and drove your children down into the holes of ships. 'Twas then the tom-tom rolled from village unto village and told the people that another foreign slave ship had put off on its way to far-off shores. 'Twas then the Tom rolled from village unto village and told the people that another foreign slave ship had put off on its way to far off shores, where God is cotton, where the dollar reigns as king. There, sentenced to unending, racking labor, toiling from dawn to dusk. In the relentless sun, they taught you in your psalms to glorify their Lord, while you yourself were crucified to him that promised bliss in the world of hereafter, while you beg of them a single boon, that they should let you live, to simply live, and by a fire your dim fantastic dreams poured out aloud in melancholy strain, as elemental and as wordless as your anguish. It happened. You even played, be merry, and danced in sheer exuberance of spirit. And then would all the splendor of your manhood, the sweet desires of youth sound wild with power, on strings of brass in burning tambourines, and from that mighty music the beginning of jazz arose, tempestuous, capricious, declaring to the white in accents loud that not entirely was the planet theirs. Oh music, it was you who permitted us to lift our face and peer into the eyes of future liberty that would one day be ours. Then let the shores of the mighty rivers bearing on their living waves to the radiant future, oh brother mine, be yours. Let the fierce heat of the relentless midday sun burn up your grief. Let them evaporate in everlasting sunshine, those tears shed by your father and your grandsire, tortured to death upon these mournful fields. And may our people, free and joyful forever, live, triumph, thrive in peace in this our Congo, here in the heart, the very heart of our great Mama Africa. Tendai Mwadi, be thankful unto the Mother, Father, creative life force of the universe. Kudzai Mudzimu Mokuro, we give praises unto our great ancestors. Abibi Tumi, Abibi Fahodi, African power and African liberation for all African people on the face of Mother Earth. Yes, indeed, brothers and sisters, welcome, welcome, welcome to another live session here on Kimbunga Media. For those who are not aware, the word sound Kimbunga, spoken in the Kiobuntu, often referred to as Kiswahili language, simply means whirlwind, simply means storm. And as the children of the most honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey, who told us, look for me in the whirlwind, look for me in the storm. As the children of the most honorable, we recognize ourselves as the whirlwind and the storm of Messiah. And so we come to you here today as Kimbunga Media in honor and in celebration of the 100th birthday of a great African who hails from the nation that is currently referred to as Congo, Democratic Republic of the Congo, whose 100th birthday happens to be on the 2nd of July 2025. And so we are here to honor his name. We are here to honor his legacy. We are here to honor his sacrifice as a man who paid the ultimate sacrifice for us as African people. And we do so feeling all of the pain and the sorrow that accompanies a memoriam such as this, but equally full of joy and thanksgiving for the life of Papa Patrice Lumumba, who came to us, who was born onto this earth the 2nd of July 1925, brothers and sisters. We opened with a poem from the great one, May Our People Triumph, a poem by Papa Patrice Lumumba. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Powerful, powerful word sounds. And one of the only ways, fitting ways, that we could have opened our exploration today. Brothers and sisters, we encourage you to like the video as you come through. Hit the like button. Yes, indeed. Hit the like button. You don't know. Hit the like button as you come through and spread this Pan-African energy all over the social media space, and share the link. Share the link far and wide. Make the people them know the Shakara is live right about now, looking at the topic, how Papa Patrice Lumumba fought back, celebrating 100 years since the birth of Papa Patrice Lumumba. Would like to let you know that on the birthday of Papa Patrice Lumumba, the 2nd of July, we shall be convening a panel, brothers and sisters. We shall be convening a panel, that's Ujamaa Day, the 2nd of July, Wednesday, the 2nd of July. And we will be here with a panel just looking at the life and the legacy of Papa Patrice Lumumba from different perspectives. Yeah. And so do stay tuned for more information on that, announcements of panelists, etc., etc., etc. We look forward to you joining us for that particular occasion. We want to apologize for those who joined us last week for part 1 of this discussion on how Papa Patrice Lumumba fought back. Our video was blocked as a result of the documentary that we used to guide the conversation. Yeah, so we broke up the conversation with visuals via a documentary, and then some reading, brothers and sisters. And despite the fact that the documentary is in fact already on YouTube, for some reason the video last week, was blocked. And so we were able to do some re-editing and post up sections of that particular discussion, and we even made some additions to that. So give thanks to all those who have been viewing that particular content and sharing their appreciation for it. And today we are going to continue with that conversation, except for the fact that we obviously, for obvious reasons, will not be using the documentary to go any further, and we will rely on the text. Yeah, we will rely on the text, which is Patrice Lumumba, that was published by the Panaf Books. Yeah, Great Lives series, brothers and sisters. So we give thanks for that particular book and how it runs down the history, and we'll be going through that today. But as a bit of a backdrop, there's a particular individual who was a Belgian diplomat who featured in the documentary. And the documentary is, by the way, called Political Assassinations, Patrice Lumumba. Yeah. The assassination of Patrice Lumumba. It's a documentary that's been around for quite some time. I've been watching it since I was very, very young. And Jacques Brazin features in this documentary. He was a Belgian diplomat who was on the scene in the Congo at the time. And when I watched this particular documentary when I was young, the part that probably most stood out to me was a statement that Jacques Brazin made in the documentary. And this is after Papa Patrice Lumumba had gone through the attempted coup of Kasavubu, and then later was in the midst of the Mobutu coup that sought to bring Kasavubu back to the presidency, and install a different prime minister at one point. Well, effectively, not it sought to bring Kasavubu in league with Mobutu, and there was a possibility of him becoming president. But initially, he had deposed the two of them. Mobutu had, and Mobutu arrested Papa Patrice Lumumba and had him under house arrest. And Papa Lumumba, this was from September. In November, Papa Lumumba was able to escape, the house arrest. And the documentary goes into the fact that one of the Lumumba strongholds in the Congo in 1960 was in Stanleyville, and Stanleyville was a part of the province. Let me make sure that I'm getting this correct. Give me a sec, brothers and sisters, to consult my notes on this one. But the Congo was separated into 6 provinces, and Stanleyville, if I'm not mistaken, was either a part of the Oriental or the Equator province. Yeah, one of the two, and I'll correct that in a second. Yeah, I will correct that in a second. However, Brazil stated that wherever Oriental is the Oriental province, the Stanleyville was the capital of the Oriental province and was known to be a Lumumba stronghold. And so the aim, when Papa Patrice Lumumba escaped house arrest, was to make the journey to Stanleyville and organize among the people to wage a counterattack against the forces of Mobutu, against the forces of Kasavubu, and against the forces of Shombe, who were all being backed by the Belgians, by the Americans, and by the United Nations to varying degrees, brothers and sisters, at this time. And Brazil makes this statement. He said, wherever Lumumba went on the journey to Stanleyville, whatever village he passed through, he would stop and he would make a speech. He said, even among the villages where he didn't have a lot of support, he would stop and he would make a speech. Then he said he was in a trap of his own making. There was a lot of propaganda about Lumumba at the time, brothers and sisters. And Brazil says that Lumumba was in a trap of his own making. Why? Because of the propaganda that was out there about Papa Patrice Lumumba, he had to wage a counterattack in relation to that propaganda. And Brazil says he needed to win people over. And he was quite capable of doing so. And so every village he went through on the way to Stanleyville, where his safety would have been assured, he made a speech. But Brazil said, but this longed out the journey. And so, as a result of this speech making longing out the journey, it allowed those who were in pursuit of Papa Patrice Lumumba, i.e., the forces of Mobutu and Kasavubu, but mostly Mobutu because he was the head of the army, and it was in fact the Congolese National Army that was used, and I should say elements within the Congolese National Army, because it would be true to say that there were many within the army that were supporters of Papa Lumumba, as we're going to learn as we go through this particular text. So those who were pursuing Lumumba were able to catch up with him because of the fact that he would stop in every village and speak and connect with the people. Had he not done that, he would have been able, it seems, and in fact, he nearly made it to the Oriental province. Yeah, he nearly made it there. But for one river, brothers and sisters, upon which he was caught. Yeah. So to extemporize on this a little bit further, I'm just gonna bring up this particular image. Yeah. So you get an idea of the geography where we are dealing with. Yeah. And so that we can allow you to visualize this in your mind. All right. So let me bring up this image. So this is an image of what the Congo was looking like in and around the 1960 during that particular Congo crisis. Yeah. And so when you see South Kasai, that is a part of the Kasai province, but they had seceded from what is called from the Greater Congo, as had Katanga as well. And then you see government of Gizenga. That's going to become important later. Yes. And then you see government of Mobutu. So Lumumba was in Leopoldville. Yeah. Lumumba was in Leopoldville, which was another province of the Congo. And the capital, so Leopoldville was the name of the province as well as the name of the capital city of the province, as you can tell, named after King Leopold. And then you would have Kivu, yeah, to the right, Katanga. You will also have Oriental and Equator to the north. So at the north, it will be Equator and Oriental. Leopold in the center, from left to right, it would be Leopoldville, or from west to east, it would be Leopoldville, Kasai, and Kivu. And then south, you would see Katanga. And so effectively, Papa Patrice Lumumba was making the journey from Leopoldville, which is on the eastern side, sorry, the western side of Congo, traveling to Stanleyville, the capital of the Oriental province, brothers and sisters. And everywhere he went on that journey, he would make a speech. It's quite a long journey. Congo is a very, very big country, brothers and sisters. Okay. So that statement always intrigued me because it messed me up. Like, how close Lumumba was to not being subject to the torture and the assassination that he eventually was subjected to. Yeah, it messed me up. And I was left contemplating the resolve of such a man, that he knows that his safety is in danger, but he feels compelled to connect with the masses of the people to such an extent that connecting with the masses of the people becomes a priority over and above his own personal safety. And it occurred to me at the time that Lumumba must have had such an extreme faith in the masses of the people of the Congo that once they hear the truth of what was taking place, the people would make the right decision. Yeah. And but it also put me in the mind of, but what if he just went to Stanleyville though and got there and informed people why he was there? What would the situation have been in the Congo today if he was able to make that move? So today we're going to go into the fact that this was not just a move by Lumumba, that Lumumba was organizing with many other Africans in the Congo, many of whom had preceded him on the route to Stanleyville and who had begun fighting back against the forces of Kasavubu and Mobutu and Shombe as they were being backed by Belgium and America, the United States of America, and the United Nations. And so this is how Papa Patrice Lumumba fought back against those forces. And many of us are not aware of the battles that were actually won by the Lumumbaist forces prior to the assassination of Papa Patrice Lumumba. And it was in fact the fact that they were winning these battles that forced the hand of the colonizer, would-be neocolonizer, to resort to the final solution for subjugating the people of the Congo, which was the eventual assassination of Papa Patrice Lumumba. So let me bring up the text that we are going to be reading from. And in doing so, let me big up the chat. Melaman is in the building. Kemo bin Israel is in the building. Set Imhotep is in the building, and giving thanks to all who are just coming through, all silent viewers. We appreciate you all. We ask you to hit the like button as you come through, and we also ask you to share the link far and wide and spread this very, very important conversation as we celebrate Papa Patrice Lumumba, whose 100th birthday we shall observe on the 2nd of July, brothers and sisters. All right. So we're going to get into this text. And it says, Lumumba fought back with all the methods available to him and with a series of brilliant counterattacks turned the tables against his enemies. You know what? I should read the previous paragraph for the sake of providing some context. It says, Lumumba's electoral victory, which would have enabled him to establish a national government, was snatched away from him first by Belgian aggression, then by UN occupation, and then by US manipulation of the vote in the Assembly of the United Nations. These were all attempts to thwart him by carrying out from carrying out the people's mandate. So let me explain that, brothers and sisters, especially for those who did not join us last week. Within 10 days of Papa Patrice Lumumba assuming prime ministership of the Congo, a Belgian invasion of 10,000 troops occurred in the Katanga province of the Congo. Those Belgian troops were being backed by obviously the Belgian government and also Belgian corporations, preeminent among them Union Miniere, which was a big mining company that was operating in colonial Congo. The day after, and by the way, within this same period, within days of that occurrence taking place, in fact, a set of US Marines had also invaded the Congo, but that was a secret operation. Yeah, but it has come to light that a set of US Marines had also invaded the Congo through, I believe, the Leopold province. Yeah. And they were on a reconnaissance mission, to secure US interests in the Congo, right? This was relatively unknown at that time. This came to light later through CIA papers. Yeah. For the sake of what was happening at the time, though, the Belgian invasion was what was material. Yes. The day after the Belgian invasion, and remember, the Belgians invade into Katanga. They provide assurances to one of the leading forces in Katanga, a man by the name of Moise Shombe, who was a leader of a political party called Konakat. Yeah. And then the day after the Belgian invasion, Shombe declares the cessation, i.e. the breakaway of the Katanga province from the Greater Congo. On that day, over a billion, Belgian francs he is paid by Union Miniere and the Belgian government. Belgian mercenaries are coming into Katanga, and they are funding this military expedition in Katanga to suppress the forces and the people in Katanga who are supportive of the Lumumba government, and then lead this process of breaking away from Congo, quite simply to secure Belgian interest within Congo and within Katanga. A little bit later on, due to varying different circumstances, Kasavubu, who was then the elected president, the ceremonial head, attempts to dismiss the government of Lumumba. And Lumumba, through using the parliament, is able to negate and withstand that particular attempted takeover of the government, and effectively reinstalls both himself and Kasavubu into the government. What we didn't go through last week is what they refer to here in terms of the United Nations. Yeah, it says, then by UN occupation, so we went into the UN occupation, Patrice Lumumba asked for UN assistance to get rid of the Belgian invasion, and the UN comes in and occupies every province in the Congo apart from Katanga, and refuses to engage the Belgians in Katanga, whilst it is at the same time disarming the forces of the Congolese National Army. Okay, so that was considered an occupation. You've occupied every province in the country. You're disarming the military of the country, whilst refusing to disarm the military that the country is in fact being invaded by. But then there's US manipulation of the vote in the assembly of the UN. And so what is that referring to? Yeah, as I said, Lumumba was arrested and put on place under house arrest in September of 1960. And the various different political forces in Congo were engaging with the UN, because the UN was operating in the Congo. And the Secretary General of the United Nations, Hammarskjöld, Dag Hammarskjöld, was very much anti-Lumumba, very much pro-Kasavubu, and to a lesser extent, but to an extent, Mobutu. And what happened at the United Nations is that the various different factions, so at this point, the Lumumbaist faction and the Mobutu Kasavubu faction were vying for representation at the UN, the United Nations, as to who was going to represent the interests and the government of the people of the Congo at the United Nations. The United Nations voted to recognize the government of Kasavubu, which was then being backed by Mobutu, Mobutu, Belgium, and the United States of America. So as it says, the US manipulation of the vote at the assembly. And so this act in the United Nations effectively was designed to negate and weaken the legitimate claim of Papa Patrice Lumumba on the global stage as being the rightful prime minister, head of government of the Democratic Republic of the Congo. So where the crux of the story now that we're going to be going into happens after all of this. They've gone through all of these different battles. They've won some, and then they lose the vote at the United Nations because of US manipulation. Right? Let us continue. Says Lumumba fought back with all the methods available to him, and with a series of brilliant counterattacks, turned the tables against his enemies. We need to understand how Lumumba fought back. Possible defeats were turned into victories. Lumumba knew that if the arena of struggle was to be in parliament or among the masses, his enemies would have no chance. But imperialism chose the military and Mobutu as its chief agent. So Papa Patrice Lumumba had appointed Mobutu Mobutu, the head of the military, during, as we went into last week, a mutiny against the white leadership in the army. Yes. And Mobutu was instrumental in resolving some of those upheavals. And so as a result of his ability to communicate with the army, Lumumba appointed him as the head of the army, along with a couple other brothers. And then Mobutu eventually betrayed Lumumba in that position. And then the United Nations, well, I should say the US, through the United Nations, began to fund Mobutu's funding of the army. So the US gave the United Nations $1 million this time so that Mobutu can pay the troops. And this was important because one of the demands of the troops was better pay. They were underpaid under colonialism. And one of their demands coming into the independence of the Congo was for better pay and better treatment. And so the US facilitated this through Mobutu. So as to commandeer the loyalty of the army in the interest of Belgium and America, brothers and sisters. All right? That is what that is referring to. Let's read again. Lumumba knew that if the arena of struggle was to be in parliament among the masses, his enemies would have no chance. But imperialism chose the military and Mobutu as its chief agent. It was indeed ironical that this was the very organ, the army, and the very person, Mobutu, whom Lumumba trusted to come in to help him in establishing power, which entered the arena as a counter-revolutionary force. Brothers and sisters, we're reading from the book Patrice Lumumba that was published by Panaf, the Panaf Publishing Company, under its Great Lives series. If after July, traitors like Bomboko, one too many syllables in that name from a Jamaican perspective, Ileo, Kasavubu, and Mobutu left him, so these are all traitors. Others, like Gizenga, the vice premier, he was the deputy prime minister under Lumumba. Kasamura, Pierre Molele, who becomes entirely important in this story post the assassination of Patrice Lumumba, and Antoine Benye drew even closer. So now we have to note these names. Gizenga, that's Antoine Gizenga. Kashamura, whose first name I'm forgetting. Pierre Molele and Antoine Benye drew even closer, although they did not belong to the MNC. The MNC was Lumumba's political party. Yes, the Movement National Congolais, which its primary claim to fame and popularity was that it did not represent an individual so-called tribe, which the majority of the other political parties in the Congo, that was their primary makeup, that they represented the interests of a specific people group, a specific micronation. But Lumumba's support came from a cross-section of all of the different micronations in the Congo. And as the neocolonial agenda was unfolding, even many of the people that were not members of Lumumba's political party became his supporters because of the fact that they could see, one, what he was trying to achieve in the Congo, and two, how the forces of Bakra imperialism were attempting to attack him and undo the work that he was trying to do. They saw the Kasavubu coup as an injustice. They saw the Mobutu coup as an injustice. They saw the machinations and the policies of the United Nations as an injustice. And some of them didn't, and this is even goes beyond even the Congo, the whole of Africa. Some people didn't necessarily agree with Lumumba's position or his politics. They just felt that what was being done to try and remove him from power was unjust, and that he should be allowed to govern. Remember, his governance was effectively thwarted 10 days after he assumed the role of head of government, brothers and sisters. So, once again, I encourage brothers and sisters to get this book, as I said last week. Yeah, it's a very good overview of the dynamics of the Congo at that time, and this is what I've actually scanned, so I can read it for you today. And last Sabbath, Tenamwari. If after July traitors like Bomboko, Ileo, Kasavubu, and Mobutu left him, others like Gizenga, Kashamura, Pierre Molele, and Antoine Benye drew even closer, although they did not belong to the MNC. So great was the growing solidarity between the various groups and the MNC that Lumumba decided to merge his organization with the PSA, and I'll get you what these are different political parties, and Sierra and elements of Balubacat. Yeah, Balubacat was also a political party that was representing the interests specifically of the Baluba people, and they are also coming from the Katanga province, which is the same province of Moise Shombe, but they were not in league with Moise Shombe. As things evolved, that party and its leader Sendwe became more and more aligned with Lumumba. Yeah, and so there was a process through which the various different elements from all of these different political parties were forming alliances. And as it says here, there was talk of forming a new national party, yeah, from the grassroots to challenge the alliances of those who were aligned with America and Belgium and the United Nations, and were in fact being directly paid by them. Those who gravitated towards Lumumba were the Congolese youth, and these were politically mature. The heat and fire of the struggle was such that during the years leading up to 1960, and particularly after July 1960, they became politically aware very quickly, intelligent and quick, and not directly involved in diplomatic maneuvers. They understood, as did Lumumba, that the only language enemies would understand would be that of force. It was the counter-revolutionary force that dislodged Lumumba. Listen carefully. It was the counter-revolutionary force that dislodged Lumumba. Then only revolutionary force could put him and his government back in power. This meant that not only the people would have to be politicized, but they should also be armed. Against a puppet army, they decided to create an army that belonged to and was loyal to the people. This meant only one thing: to take the road to Stanleyville, their base area. Yeah, so we've already gone into the significance of Stanleyville and the fact that it was a Lumumba stronghold, the most developed of the Lumumba strongholds. But remember, I spoke about Lumumba going to Stanleyville. What we're learning now is that not before Lumumba went on the road to Stanleyville, many of his supporters were already on that road, and many of them made the journey and achieved that journey and began to establish a counter-attack, a revolutionary government to counter the counter-revolutionary government, brothers and sisters. So after the Lumumba and those who supported him have gone through and won the battles in the parliament, yes, they've withstood a Mobutu coup and succeeded in freeing Lumumba from house arrest. Even in spite of the United Nations vote recognizing Kasavubu over Lumumba, negating Lumumba, They were winning the battle among the masses of the people of the Congo, to the extent that the Congolese youth came out in support of Lumumba. There was all kinds of uprisings and upheavals whilst Lumumba was on house arrest, as the young people of Congo were becoming agitated and wanting to know why Lumumba was being arrested. And so the army under Mobutu was used as a weapon to crush the Lumumbaist forces that were challenging them. So they come to the conclusion, the only thing to do is to develop a viable counterforce. Lumumba and his fellow nationalist revolutionaries had traveled full circle. They were wiser for their experiences, learned through the hard school of life. Belgium had given them independence with one hand and taken it away with the other through Shombe. The UN was called in to liberate, but remained to occupy. The African states, we went into the Leopold Conference, All African Conference last week. We ain't got time to go into it again today. The African states were called in to help, and they ended up chastising their host. That is, the host being Lumumba, because a lot of them were in league with the United Nations and the United States government. Attempts at reconciliation in Kasavubu had proved Lumumba correct, for Kasavubu had chosen his imperialist masters. In the letter of September 1960 to Nkrumah, or Sajafo Kwame Nkrumah, Lumumba had indicated that Parliament had taken a decision to remove the capital of the Congo to Stanleyville, to move the capital city of the entirety of Congo from Leopoldville and the Leopoldville province to Stanleyville in the Oriental province. He wrote, "The whole country is behind the government. The removal of the seat of the government to Stanleyville will soon frustrate the imperialist plots, because it will be seen at once that Kasavubu is isolated and that the country is not in agreement with him." If counter-revolutionaries learn from their mistakes, so do revolutionaries. The latter understood that the only force to counter Belgian aggression and UN occupation would be the people. It would not be debates, even in Parliament, on the legality or otherwise of this or that man's actions. They had tried that already. It would not be the discussions at work. They had tried that already and won. Yes, according to parliamentary procedure. Yes, Lumumba won according to parliamentary procedure, and still the forces effectively illegally, as far as the Congo parliament was concerned, moved against him and tried to unseat the government. It would not be the discussions at world assemblies that would be the decisive factor. World assemblies at the United Nations. It would be force, organized force of the people confronting and challenging the force of imperialism that would be decisive. And it was in this new confrontation where the armed forces of revolution met the armed forces of counter-revolution that it was proved once again that the country and its people were behind Lumumba. While Lumumba was surrounded by a ring of troops and his every movement watched, other leaders slipped away from Leopoldville. This is the fight back of Lumumba now, but not just Lumumba, the man. The Lumumbaist forces in the Congo, brothers and sisters, were organizing, yes, to challenge the neocolonial agenda. While Lumumba was surrounded by a ring of troops and his every movement, watched, other leaders slipped away from Leopoldville and took the road to Stanleyville. From the other provincial capitals, it was the same. Militants and radicals all converged towards the capital of Oriental province, and nothing could show more the degree of political consciousness of the people than that. This is now while Lumumba is still under house arrest. The organizing among the people and some of the political leadership was already taking place. Of the people than that, although belonging to different tribes, they were all well received in Stanleyville. In them was the future nation. That is very important because of the extent to which the onslaught of the Bakra imperialists, the rule was, their modus operandi was divide and rule. So get the different African groups hyper interested in their own individual people group, so as to cause division and govern the nation effectively and take over the nation militarily, economically, and politically in the space of that division. But the Lumumbaist forces, as I've already stated, moved across the different micronations and were demonstrating what a unified government in the Congo could and should be able to achieve. At the end of November, those who had arrived were Antoine Gizenga, Christophe Beni, Marcel Bisukiro, Pierre Molele, and Masena, Thomas Kanza, and Andre Mandi, two highly educated Congolese who had refused to serve the College of Commissioners. The College of Commissioners is the body that Mobutu had put into power when he waged his coup. So he was basically running a game. He pretended as though he was going to return to quote unquote civilian government through this College of Commissioners, which is really a group of students and intellectuals and politicians that he put together in order to run the Congo in his interest, and American interest and Belgium interest. Yeah. But some of those who were involved and were called upon to be a part of that, like Thomas Kanza and Andre Mandi, refused to involve themselves in this charade. Yes. And had also indicated their support for Lumumba. Two highly placed and popular leaders of Balubakat, that was the Baluba party in Katanga. Yes, the parties representing the interests of the Luba people in Katanga, hence Balubakat. Remy Mwamba and Ilunga also arrived. So that is important because there are those who try to paint the cessation of Katanga as though it was a legitimate operation, as though the people of Katanga wanted to secede from the Congo. But there were people, one of the biggest political parties that was operating in Katanga was anti the cessation and anti-Shombe. It's a very important point. Yeah. And it was the Belgian mercenaries that were being used in Katanga to murder and kill and destroy those forces. Let's bear that in mind and continue. Last but not least came Victor Lundula, commander of the Congolese National Army. That was another appointee of Papa Patrice Lumumba, and a man who was considered to be a threat to Mobutu and Mobutu's interest and his rise in the army itself. So Mobutu was not a fan of Lundula, who at the time of the crisis remained loyal to Lumumba and whom the imperialists could not corrupt. Kasavubu had decided to sack him. Yes, when Mobutu waged his coup, and then initially Kasavubu didn't support the coup, but he was convinced by Larry Devlin, the CIA station chief, yes, to support Mobutu. And so Mobutu basically effectively gave him some semblance of power, and Kasavubu sacked Lundula from the army. A central government was set up in Stanleyville with ministers who held similar. This is all before Lumumba has escaped house arrest and is on the way to Stanleyville, who held similar posts in Leopoldville. But it was only after the 15th of December that is after the announcement of the arrest of Lumumba, that it openly announced itself and began to function as such. One of the first jobs which Lundula undertook after his arrival in October was to reorganize the army. The officers suspected of being in the pay of imperialism and Mobutu were dismissed, dispersed, and their units were broken up. Meanwhile, there was a massive recruitment campaign to enroll new and younger people within a short time, and the provincial army had over 5,000 men. The UN troops were not only outnumbered, but also rendered powerless. For now, not only had they to contend with armed force, but with soldiers who were organically linked up with the aspirations of the people. Both chambers of parliament had given Lumumba full power to reorganize the government. That's true. That's one of the victories that Lumumba won in the parliament, which we went through last week. And if you want to see the details of that, please watch the video on the Kasavubu coup. Within a short space of 2 months, there arose in Stanleyville not only a government representative of the people, but an army that would now be in a position to enforce laws and decrees and to protect its civilian leaders. Western writers could hardly be accused of being Lumumbaist. Sorry, brothers and sisters. Western writers who could hardly be accused of being Lumumbaist, surveying the scene, recognized the reality of the new force emerging round the Stanleyville government. One of them commented, within the Congo itself, the Stanleyville regime, despite its recent formation and lack of organization, could certainly count on wider support than either the regime in Leopoldville or Katanga. Yeah? So this is even Bakra imperialists recognized. Listen, of these three forces, and really there was two, because Leopoldville was in league with Katanga. Of these three forces, the one that had the most legitimate support from the masses of the people was the Lumumbaists, who were organizing themselves in Stanleyville at this moment in time. It controlled virtually the whole Oriental province, of which Stanleyville was the capital, and enjoyed considerable support of the wide areas of Kivu and Kasai, which were provinces just south of the Oriental province, North Katanga, which was the province that was in cessation against the broader Congo. But even in that province, Lumumba and the Lumumbaist forces had support, and the western part of Leopoldville province, in which the capital city resided. It carried the prestige of Lumumba's name. The Stanleyville government at once set about challenging the other bases of power. It's Elizabethville, which was the capital of Katanga, and Leopoldville. In Elizabethville and Leopoldville. Freed from the deadening effects of sterile debates with resolutions and amendments and counter-amendments, free from conciliation attempts, which the other side was not prepared to honor, the revolutionary youth of the Congo now set about organizing the population with the same fervor and determination that characterized the elections. Only now they had become wiser as a result of the knocks they had received. The youth of the Congo showed the whole of Africa what they could do. With Oriental province as the base area, they moved in all directions to establish people's power in other areas of the Congo. In the process, they also showed that the UN police force was just another paper tiger. They just bypassed the UN troops stationed there, took over control, and presented a fait accompli. In fact, it also showed that the lower level layers of the UN troops were sympathetic to the cause of the legitimate government of the Congo. So the UN forces, although the UN was dominated by the United States, the leadership of the UN forces were all Bakra, from America and Britain and Sweden and Ireland and France and that kind of different places. the rank and file of the UN forces strategically was made up of majority troops from African nations like Ghana and Guinea, Ethiopia, and a few other places. And some of these forces were in league with the imperialists. Yeah. So the head, for example, of the Ghana forces was a General Ankra. And that's important for us to note because General Ankra worked against the chief diplomat, and I'm forgetting his name, forgive me, but there was a chief diplomat in Nkrumah's government who was also operating in Katanga and was trying to work with Lumumba and the people of the Congo, and General Ankra attempted to sabotage his work. Because he was the head of the Ghanaian UN forces, and so he negated his allegiance to the government of Ghana and applied his allegiance to the Americans who were leading the United Nations. As a result of his good service, he was identified by the CIA as the man to take over from the Osagyefo Kwame Nkrumah, and in fact led the coup that unseated Osagyefo Kwame Nkrumah in the year 1966. Man was a CIA agent from his time in Congo in 1960, brothers and sisters. But the Lumumbaist forces were challenging the UN forces, and some among the rank and file of the UN appeared sympathetic to the cause of the legitimate government of the Congo. In two quick decisive moves, the army from Stanleyville, in fact, a People's Liberation Army, because its task was to liberate the Congo from foreign domination, took over Kivu province and northern Katanga. In the case of the latter, about 500 soldiers from Stanleyville moved secretly on the 7th of January 1961. This is January 1961 now, into Kivu province and entered Monono in northern Katanga. The majority of the soldiers were Baluba and therefore belonged to the population. So Baluba, northern Katanga was a stronghold of Sendwe and Baluba Cat Party. The Baluba people are the majority there. And so when the Stanleyville soldiers went into northern Katanga, they were supported by the masses of the Baluba people in Katanga. Umwamba Ilunga was with the army and it was accepted by the population. The political leaders from this area joined the liberation forces, in the takeover. As a result of the support of the population, a new and separate administration was established, cutting itself off from the Shombe government. Shombe, as I said, was the leader of the Katanga province, who was anti-Lumumbaist, pro-Belgium, and funded significantly by the Belgium, and was given resources, particularly military, by Belgian mercenaries, which he was selling. Yes. It's there's so many elements of this story. A new province of Lualaba was established, which you saw in the image that I opened with that showed the different provinces. What was surprising was that this journey by the soldiers from Stanleyville involved traveling hundreds of miles, including a passage through Kivu. So they had to travel through Kivu to get to Katanga. The soldiers could easily have been recognized as they belonged to a different so-called tribe. That the move was a complete surprise meant only this, that the people of Kivu, where they were traveling through, supported the Balubas and their action. There were some 400 soldiers in Monono. They were taken completely by surprise, but they could do nothing about it. For not only were the liberation troops entrenched, but also they had the support of the local population. This is how Papa Patrice Lumumba fought back. It was just as well that the UN Nigerian troops did not use force, for they would have been faced with this uprising of the entire people. However, what was more significant was that the Belgians and the puppet Shombe could do nothing about it. They even defeated the Belgian forces, Belgian official army and mercenaries. Although the liberation took place right on their doorsteps, now these pompous and arrogant men showed their fear and revealed their weakness. The people did not rest, however. They pursued their victory and attacked trains going to Katanga, sabotaged the train them. Now, this wasn't done on the part of the actual official army coming out of the Stanleyville government. This was done by the people, this ordinary people, in support of the Lumumba. Its forces began to sabotage, yes, the trains that were going to Katanga. The aim of this was clear. It was to bleed the Shombe government to the extent that it would not be able to launch a counter-offensive against the base area of Stanleyville. With their outlook national now, one could see that their military strategy too oriented in this direction. The protection of their base area was more important than their own town in Munono. However, the successful thrust was only made possible as a result of an outstanding victory in Kivu province. So before they got to Katanga, they were in Kivu. Here, on Christmas Day in 1960, troops moved into Kivu, the capital of the Kivu province, and arrested Major Singer, who they believed was in the pay of foreigners. In this instance, foreigners are the Belgians and the Americans. When President Miruho intervened to defend the major, he was also arrested. They were taken to Stanleyville. Kashamura, Minister of Information under Lumumba, took over the civil administration. So now they're taking back parts of the country from the Mobutu regime. This caused panic amongst the puppets and their masters. Mobutu, who was being built up as a strong man in the country and known for his his toughness, was sent to Kivu to bring these rebels to heel. He used the typical tactic of deception, of announcing that he was traveling south and then heading northwards. He said he would be flying to Kasai province to prepare for Kasavubu's arrival, while in fact he made arrangements to fly to Kivu with his forces. To effect this, he had contacted the Belgians to allow him to use the airfield at Rwanda Urundi. Rwanda Urundi was then a unified colonial territory, and is now known separately as Rwanda, as you could probably guess, and Burundi. Yes, but the Belgians were also in control of that, and so you see that Mobutu was in league with the Belgians because it was the Belgians who gave him access to the airfield at Rwanda Urundi, which adjoined Kivu. And all of these dynamics, brothers and sisters, that we're talking about here, because all of these regions, Rwanda, Burundi, Kivu, are significant in the crisis in the Congo that exists to this day, brothers and sisters, which adjoined Kivu province for the landing of troops. He wanted to take the people completely by surprise. Except for Shombe, no other Congolese leader worthy of his name would publicly associate themselves with the former colonial masters. Therefore, attack from this quarter would have been unexpected. The invasion of Kivu was a joint enterprise with Belgium fully involved. Reports show that when Mobutu's troops landed at the airport, Belgium made available its lorries to transport troops to Rwanda, to the Rwanda Kivu border. In the meantime, planes had dropped hundreds of leaflets calling on the people to welcome their deliverer, Mobutu. Those planes were owned by the Belgians. Nigerian forces stationed there confirmed that's Nigerian UN. That's Nigerian forces under the auspices of the United Nations, and some of them were beginning to question the United Nations policy in the Congo. And so they began to report. Nigerian forces stationed there confirmed that the Belgians had assisted in the attack. The Belgian soldiers from Rwanda Urundi were arrested in Kivu. So the Lumumbaist forces arrested those Belgian forces in Kivu. Mobutu had overestimated his strength and underestimated the fierce hatred that the people had for the Belgian ex-rulers. He believed that he had just to bribe one or two army officers. Remember that I stated at the beginning that the money that Mobutu was using to bribe and to pay was given to him by the United Nations, the US government through the United Nations. And then as things began to progress, he began to come from under the United Nations cloak and was beginning to be funded directly by Belgium and the United States of America. He believed that he had just to bribe one or two army officers and one or two politicians, and that the local ANC, that's Army National Congolese, would flock to welcome him, and that the people would line up in the streets to wave at him. But nothing of the sort happened. The local army, the local ANC garrison turned against him. So even some of the people in the Congolese National Army that was effectively supposed to be under his charge, some of them realized what the hell was going on and rejected Mobutu and his Belgian and American benefactors. The local ANC garrison turned against him, just as the people rose against him. The soldiers, expecting an easy victory, meeting such hostility and resistance, just panicked. The battles were very short and decisive, and Mobutu's troops fled in disorder in all directions. Some took refuge in the camp of the Nigerians, UN forces. Others fled to Rwanda or Burundi, but many just laid down their arms and surrendered. The attempt to counter-revolution through Mobutu to take Kivu thus ended in disaster. This is how Papa Patrice Lumumba and the Lumumbaist forces fought back. Now remember, during all of this, Lumumba is on house arrest. Yeah? Lumumba is on house arrest. So it's not just Patrice Lumumba alone, the individual, but the nationalists, the African nationalist revolutionary forces in the Congo are fighting back against this aggressive attack from Belgium and America. The myth of Mobutu, the strongman, the strategist, and outstanding soldier was shattered by the unknown and unnamed soldiers and by people of Kivu. The people thus collectively had demonstrated their strength once they were united. Brothers and sisters, I hope understand where I'm going. This history is so little known, yeah, and I hope that in our little small way that we are able to shine a light on how well adapted Lumumba and those he was organizing with were to meet these challenges, and the small victories that they won along the way, and the potential embedded and implicit in these small victories in terms of what the Congo and Mama Africa could have been if we won the ultimate war. It's necessary to know and learn the lessons from this fight back, and not just wallow in depression at the losses that we faced. And we have faced some losses. We need to learn those lessons too. But learning of the victories helps to keep us in balance of character. Iwapele, as we say in Yoruba, balanced character, good character. The people thus collectively had demonstrated their strength once they were united. The defeat caused not only demoralization, but also division in the camp of the puppets. Catherine Hoskins, recording this, states, quote, "The failure of the attempt to take over Kivu was a serious blow to the prestige of Mobutu and to the alliance as a whole, and resulted in increasing opposition to him in the army as well as among the politicians. As a result, it seems to have been fairly accepted that the army must be withdrawn from politics, and that a government of politicians must replace the College of Commissioners which Mobutu had installed. In January, Mobutu was promoted from colonel to general, but nothing could conceal that his authority was crumbling. The crushing defeat of Mobutu's forces at Kivu and the successful takeover in Katanga, concrete and decisive steps in the liberation of the Congo, heartened the revolutionary forces. Their base extended now, since it rested on the armed might of the People's Army from Oriental Province to Kivu and to northern Katanga. The next target was the province of Equator on the border of Oriental. So Equator and Oriental, both provinces in the north of the Congo, Oriental being in the east and Equator being in the west. Yeah, but these are the two most northern provinces. A pincer movement was developing to isolate Leopoldville and southern Katanga. With the establishment of the dual power in the Congo, the Stanleyville forces of revolution based in Stanleyville the forces of revolution based in Stanleyville were thus seizing the initiative from the forces of counter-revolution and beating them on their own plane, that of military strength. Now, those of you who were listening last week would remember that we looked at the fact that at the All African Conference, the Leopoldville Conference in August, Messiah of the year 1960, one of the things that Lumumba was trying to achieve was the development of an All African High Command. This had already been pronounced from the mouth and from the pen of the Osage Kwame Nkrumah, and Lumumba and Nkrumah and Secretary and a few others saw the calling upon African nations to assist in resolving the crisis in the Congo, which was then characterized as the Belgian invasion, as a means through which to develop the embryo of the African military high command. But the people of the Congo, as led by the Lumumbaist forces, were beginning to achieve that among themselves during this period. If the same momentum was kept up, then the signs were clear that a national uprising of armed people to defend their conquests was on the way. On the 10th of September 1960, the Belgian Minister of Foreign Affairs said that the constitutional authorities had a duty to put Lumumba in a position where he could not cause trouble. The constituted authorities had already issued a warrant of arrest for the arrest of Lumumba, and in September he was apprehended only to be freed by the intervention of Congolese soldiers. Bear that in mind, that Congolese soldiers were able to free, what collaborated with Lumumba in terms of freeing him. In the crucial months of October and November, he was under house arrest, with 2 rings of troops surrounding the building. From here, he was in no position to carry out his duties as prime minister or as leader of his party. But as Bomboko said on the 4th of October, as long as the rascal, Lumumba, is free, there is no use working. Even under arrest, Lumumba could demoralize his enemies. The people of the Congo did not, and by the way, whilst Lumumba was under house arrest, the planner, sorry, I forgot to put the reading back on the screen. I apologize, brothers and sisters, but we'll get back in a second. Whilst Lumumba was on house arrest, and he was planning to escape, there were those who were trying to work through different avenues to bring him back to prominence in the Congo, and they wanted him to remain on house arrest for his own safety and for them to go through these processes. Yeah, there was that battle going on between some of the pro-Lumumba forces as well. But as was stated here, it was felt that he couldn't properly, administer his duties while under house arrest, and that it was important to just join the forces that were waging this revolution, counter imperialist revolution, in the Stanleyville Oriental province. The people of the Congo did not expect Lumumba to be overthrown in such a cynical and shameless way. They were angry that upstarts like Mobutu and those around him in his quote unquote college should now take control. They were not known for any contribution that they had made for the people. Their hearts went out to Lumumba, particularly while he was under house arrest and after his daring escape and his subsequent capture and imprisonment. If there was one single factor that turned the entire Congolese people, whatever their political affiliations, against the usurpers, Kasavubu and Mobutu, it was just this. James O'Driscoll, writing in a British newspaper, observed the following. Support for him, Lumumba, has grown throughout the country since his capture by the forces of Colonel Mobutu. Thinking Congolese, whether his political supporters or not, feel he is, after all, the elected prime minister. Although they do not agree with his policies, they feel that he should be allowed to take office and not be thrown out at the dictates of rival political parties and the chief of the army before his parliament has even been consulted, unquote. That's just people that weren't necessarily supporters of Lumumba, you know. You know, so the man shouldn't be, you know, overthrown. So I forgot to bring up the reading again. I apologize, my brothers and sisters. This was the view of some of the educated Congolese. But the masses were even more outspoken. Kasavubu had organized a mass meeting in Luluaburg, in an area believed to be his stronghold. The people, however, refused to listen to him and shouted back, "Where is Lumumba? Long live Lumumba, Uhuru," which means freedom. They shook Kasavubu. For the people in the choice of slogans, that shook Kasavubu. For the people in the choice of slogans saw the issues clearly, that it was Lumumba and not Kasavubu that stood for Uhuru. One of the important factors here is that the term Uhuru as a revolutionary call among the people of the African continent and the African diaspora was popularized by the Kenya Land and Freedom Army in Kenya, popularly referred to as the Mau Mau. Salute to Mama Njeri. Salute to Papa Deda and Kimati. And one of the things that scared the colonizers to death is that more and more Africans would adopt the Kenya Land and Freedom Army agenda and go on all-out military warfare, armed resistance against the colonizer. So when them hear Uhuru, they start get digi. They start get shook. You see me? Because ain't no such thing as halfway crooks. They're scared to death. Scared to look in a Congo. Brothers and sisters. Lumumba and not Kasavubu stood for Uhuru. We're nearly there, brothers and sisters. We're nearly there. For those who are not aware, we are reading from the book Patrice Lumumba, published by Panaf Books under their Great Lives series. Yeah. So if for those who want to get access to the get this book, if you just search Patrice Lumumba, Panaf Great Lives, Panaf, P-A-N-A-F, Great Lives, then you'll be able to get this book. All right. I've said that a few times now, so I hope people can log it down and get the book. Like I said, it's a very good overview of the history of Lumumba, Congo, and what was taking place during this time. Yeah. It was published in the 1970s. So there's more information that has come to light since then, particularly in relation to the CIA involvement, which you can find. One book you can find it in is The Plot to Kill Lumumba. Or the Lumumba plot, one of the two. I forget that title. Yeah, one of the two. And White Malice. Yeah, I forget the author of the first book, but White Malice is written by Susan Williams. Those two books go into greater detail about the CIA involvement, which was not as well known when this particular book was published. The strength of this book, however, is that it's written from a Pan-African perspective. Yeah, and so you get some Pan-African analysis, from this book that you won't get in some of the other books. The people identified Lumumba with their own aspirations. His imprisonment became their imprisonment. His pain, their pain. And Mali's delegate at the UN warned the imperialists after his transfer to Leopoldville that what the colonialists forget is that Lumumba is more than a man. He is a symbol. He is the incarnation of the aspirations of a whole people, of millions of Congolese. And the Congolese revolution will succeed because it is inevitable, unquote. Historical note, Mali was then under the leadership of a Pan-Africanist by the name of Modibo Keita. Very important to get to know that name. Yes, we're nearly there. Lumumba outwitted his captors when he escaped from the troops of the UN and of Mobutu. He headed towards Stanleyville, but once outside the precincts of the capital, he was no longer a fugitive, but a prime minister. That is how the people saw him. At Bulungu, he stopped to buy provisions, and an inhabitant recognized him. The news spread like wildfire, and at 10:30 a.m., he was practically forced to hold a public meeting before an enthusiastic crowd. So this comes to now what I mentioned at the beginning of our show, brothers and sisters, and our exploration of this dynamic. Yeah, when Brazil, the Belgian diplomat, said that Lumumba would stop in every village. He escaped from house arrest, Yes, stopped on his way to Stanleyville, knowing that once he gets there, he's safe. And he will stop in every village and give a speech. And he said that because of the propaganda against him, he needed to win people over, and he was quite capable of doing so. But this put him in a trap of his own making because it longed out the journey. Yeah, and that what he said, even as a young man, listen, like that stood out to me. And then the details of that became clearer to me as I began to study more. And these are some of the details that we began to study. At Bulungu, he stopped to buy provisions. And an inhabitant recognized him. The news spread like wildfire, and at 10:30 a.m., he was practically forced to hold a public meeting before an enthusiastic crowd. He spoke of his difficulties and explained that he was going to Stanleyville, not as a fugitive, but to take charge of the liberation of the national territory in order to protect the people. It was the same at Pukulu. The enthusiastic crowd forced him to speak, and villagers poured in to hear him. At Mangai, it was Pukulu all over again. But this cost him valuable time. What had begun as the fight of a fugitive had in a few days become a triumphant tour of the people's national hero and leader. It was characteristic of Lumumba that he pushed to the background the personal danger that faced him and pushed the cause into the forefront. He spoke not of his personal suffering at the hands of the traitors, but began rallying the people towards the new and arduous task of preparing themselves for armed struggle. This method was the only one left to liberate the people of the Congo from Belgian aggression and UN occupation. The victory at Kivu and North Katanga had shown the people a way out, a bold, decisive encounter that the armed might of the people achieved much more than hundreds of debates, moves, and counter moves. In the jungles of diplomacy, there was thus an upsurge once again all over the Congo. And we won't be going into this today, brothers and sisters, but it was on this journey to Stanleyville, and I believe the last river, which I believe is called the Sukuru River, but don't quote me on that, that would lead into the Oriental province. It was on that river that Mobutu's forces eventually caught up with Lumumba. We're not going to go into all of the details of what happened, brothers and sisters. Suffice to say that Lumumba was beaten, Lumumba was tortured by Mobutu's forces, and then Lumumba was eventually handed over to Shombe's forces. Now remember that Shombe is trying to secede from the government of the Congo, which at this point, as far as the world is concerned, is being represented by Mobutu. The UN, Mobutu and Kasavubu, the UN has voted to that extent. But Mobutu has Lumumba under house arrest. And under arrest now, not house arrest, under arrest, and they're beating and torturing him. They've got written words of his speeches, and they're forcing him to swallow his own words. But there were people in the army that began to see that what was being done to Lumumba was an injustice, and various different things were happening that suggested that a rebellion was about to take place in the army in Leopoldville, and the result of that rebellion would be that the army itself would liberate Lumumba. Yes, that the rank and file in the army would liberate Lumumba in rebellion against Mobutu. And so it was decided that they had to remove Lumumba from Leopoldville because the masses in Leopoldville, including elements of the army, were beginning to rise up. So even though Shombe was rejecting the government of the Congo, the government, I say the government of the Congo, the pseudo government of the Congo that was being led by Mobutu and Kasavubu in January of 1961, all of them were answering to Belgium and the United States of America. Shombe, Mobutu, Kasavubu, and the rest of the sellout them alike. So when Mobutu was facing the trouble of the uprising of the masses of the people, including the army, at which he stood at the helm, the solution, it was felt, would be to call on Shombe and have Papa Lumumba transported to Katanga. Because Mobutu did not want Lumumba to be assassinated on territory that he had governing control over, that he had assumed governing control over. And Papa Lumumba was sent to Katanga. On the plane ride to Katanga, he was beaten all the way there. Torture included hammering wood under his fingernails, ripping pieces of his beard out and making him swallow his own beard, and then singeing other elements of his beard, among other forms of torture. Once in Katanga, he was tortured some more. And there were Belgian officers who were on the scene, brothers and sisters. And one of them, even as an agent of Bakra imperialism, he said that what struck him the most about Lumumba, in words, was the dignity of the man. That they expected him to bawl and cry out and weep and moan at what he was being subjected to. And he never did. Took all the torture with dignity. And I watched videos of Lumumba when he was arrested by Mobutu and was being slapped around, and they were forcing his speeches down his throat, pieces of paper down his throat. And I'm looking at his face and the determination in his face. And one day I was watching that video, and it struck me that Lumumba wears glasses. And he didn't have his glasses on. And I wondered how well the man could even see when he's being slapped around and being tortured in such a way and being paraded on international news. And my heart just went out to this man, and I'm saying, I wonder if he can even actually see good in that position. And one of his senses is not functioning optimally. He's extremely vulnerable in this position. And yet the look on his face is one of sheer and utter defiance and determination. Brothers and sisters. And at some point in my childhood, I learned of a letter that Papa Patrice Lumumba wrote to his wife whilst being subjected to these conditions. And I'm going to read this because we opened with a poem of Papa Patrice Lumumba, May Our People Triumph. Our show is entitled How Lumumba Fought Back. How Lumumba fought back. I'm considering whether to open up the lines for people to interact. I haven't interacted for a while. If you would like some interaction, let me know. And what I'll do is when I close this show, I'll open up a new show. That will be a special call-in show. Yeah. So if you want some interaction on this evening, we'll do some overtime. We're not going to stay on all night, but we'll do some. So just let me know in the chat, and it shall be done. But I learned of a letter that Papa Lumumba wrote to his wife, Mama Pauline Lumumba. And as we discuss how Lumumba fought back, it can be said that the final triumph of Lumumba and the final way in which Lumumba fought back was in the form of this letter and the spirit of this letter and everything that was encapsulated in this letter. And so we're going to read this letter. This is how Papa Lumumba fought back. This is his final triumph as a physical being on planet Earth. He said, "Beloved companion, I write you these words not knowing whether you will receive them and whether I will still be alive when you read them. Throughout my struggle for the independence of my country, I have never doubted for a single instant that the sacred cause to which my comrades and I have dedicated our entire lives will triumph in the end. But what we wanted for our country, its right to an honorable life, to perfect dignity, to independence with no restrictions, was never wanted by Belgian colonialism and its Western allies, who found direct and indirect, intentional and unintentional support among certain high officials of the United Nations, that body in which we placed our trust and we called on it for help. They have corrupted some of our countrymen. They have bought others. They have done their part to distort the truth and defile our independence. What else can I say? That whether dead or alive, free or in prison, by order of the colonialists, it is not my person that is important. What is important is the Congo. Our poor people whose independence has been turned into carnage. Into a cage. With people looking at us from the outside the bars. Sometimes with charitable compassion. Sometimes with glee and delight. But my faith will remain unshakable. I know and feel in my heart of hearts that sooner or later my people will rid themselves of all their enemies, foreign and domestic, that they will rise up as one to say no to the shame and degradation of colonialism and regain their dignity in the pure light of day. We are not alone. Africa, Asia, and the free and liberated peoples in every corner of the globe will ever remain at the side of the millions of Congolese who will not abandon the struggle until the day when there will be no more colonizers and no more of the mercenaries in our country. I want my children, whom I leave behind and perhaps will never see again, to be told that the future of the Congo is beautiful. Listen to this. I want my children, whom I leave behind and perhaps will never see again, to be told that the future of the Congo is beautiful and that their country expects them, as it expects every Congolese, to fulfill the sacred task of rebuilding our independence, our sovereignty. For without justice, there is no dignity. And without independence, there are no free men. Neither brutal assaults, nor cruel mistreatment, nor torture have ever led me to beg for mercy. For I prefer to die with my head held high, unshakable faith, and the greatest confidence in the destiny of my country, rather than live in slavery and contempt for sacred principles. History will one day have its say. It will not be the history taught in the United Nations, Washington, Paris, or Brussels, however, but the history taught in the countries that have rid themselves of colonialism and its puppets. Africa will write its own history, both north and south of the Sahara. It will be a history full of glory and dignity. Do not weep for me, my companion. I know that my country, now suffering so much, will be able to defend its independence and its freedom. Long live the Congo. Long live Africa. Patrice. Brothers and sisters, that letter, those words represent the final triumph of Papa Patrice Lumumba. Those words and the spirit implicit within them represent a man who was undefeated in mind and in spirit. And the future of which he spoke is here now. It is our present. The children of which he spoke are not just those that were sired by him and born to the women who he had relationships with. The children of which he spoke are all the people of the Congo, all the people of Mama Africa, all the people of the African world. I am a child of Papa Patrice Lumumba. You are a child of Papa Patrice Lumumba. And so let not his legacy be told simply according to the narrative of his assassination. Let our people and our children know how he and those who he fought back with fought back. Let our children know of the victories that they won, so that we all may be inspired to continue that fight. And when we look particularly at the conditions in the Congo today, may the people of the Congo and may all concerned Africans around the world take inspiration from the resolve of Papa Patrice Lumumba, from his unshakable faith. Let us take heart and have faith in ourselves and our capacity to solve the problems that we currently face. Let us have the unshakable faith of Papa Patrice Lumumba as we do our work, as we give all that we can, the best of ourselves, to the freedom and liberation of Mama Africa and all African people upon the face of Mother Earth. This is how Papa Patrice Lumumba fought back. May we all fight back with the unshakable faith of Papa Patrice Lumumba. Tendai Mwali, we're thankful unto the Mother, Father, creative life force of the universe. Kozai Muzimo Mokolo, we give praises unto our great ancestors. Abibi Tomi, Abibi Fahodie, African power and African liberation for all African people. Ashe, Ashe, Ashe.
Black people, we have to fight. Egungu, you see us. Ogu, we have to fight. Let's go fight. Black people, we have to fight. Dandara, you see us. Ogu, we have to fight. Let's go fight. Black people, we have to fight. Makandalo, you see us. Ogu, we have to fight. Let's go fight. Black people, we have to fight. Nana John, Henry Clark, you see us.
We have to fight. Let's go fight.
Black people, we have to fight. Yasantewa, you see us. We have to fight.
Let's go fight.
Black people, we have to fight. Marcus Garvey, you see us. We have to fight. Let's go fight. Black people, we have to fight. Nana Zumbi, you see us. We have to fight.
Let's go fight.
Black people, we have to fight. Nana Hannibal, you see us. Ogu, we have to fight. Let's go fight. Black people, we have to fight. Ancestors, you see us. We have to fight. Let's go fight.
We have to have the courage to construct our own reality. And that's what Garvey was talking about. Because he said he looked around, he didn't see what he thought should be there, and so what did he do? He didn't get depressed about it. He didn't get defeated about it. He said, I'm gonna build the government that we need to have. Ooh. Where do you get that kind of boldness from? So we gotta go all the way back to Garvey, who said he would come again. He He said he would be here with us, no matter how long it took. And I'm telling you that the way he comes back is in our work. Not honoring him in words, pomp and all of that stuff, but honoring him through doing what he did. How many of us have the courage to do that? The man took on the world for us and in our name. And then we come to Sodai. And in this presentation of the paradigm, I'm going to make this like what it is we want to reach. So Sodai is translated clear word in Dogana language. And I use it to mean that here we gain understanding. This is sight with understanding. And it is seeing beyond what just we think we see with this physical thing. It's seeing beyond that. And so we gain vision, because that's what vision is. With vision, you've got to be able to use the imagination. The imagination informed by the African spirit. And Brother Amos, who I work very closely with, was a good friend of mine. He taught me, and he would talk about imagination. Image a nation. Do you see? But that's got to be part of vision. To be a visionary, you got to see beyond this box here. You got to see beyond the ma'afa. You got to see what is it that our people rightfully should have, and that's what Garvey did. Garvey had a vision.